So today we're going to be talking about the listing presentation. There are three parts to my basic, what do you do when you're working with sellers? Part number one is what do you do before you go on a listing appointment? We did that last week. There's a video, I believe. And then now we're going to talk about what do you do when you're at the listing appointment? That sounds like the most fun. And then finally, next week we're going to do. Oh, here's Matt. What do you cover after you've actually got the listing? So welcome, Matt. I don't know if I've neglected to send you a link, but
No, sorry. I just have back-to-backs this morning, so I was a
oh,
minute
oh,
minute late getting off that one.
well, I'm just surprised that it wasn't my fault because it's been that way all morning for everything else. So do you want to go ahead and explain, oops, who you are and what you're doing, and if you wish to share something visually, you can do that.
Oh, sure. So I'm Matt Steinmetz. I'm a branch manager here with Envoy Mortgage. I am in Walnut Creek, but we have team members all over California, and we are licensed in probably about 11, 12 other states. So happy to have conversations with any of you about clients here or there. Of course, Envoy Mortgage is licensed in I think 47 states now. So if we need to get you in touch with somebody else, we will with that. So I reached out to Michael based off the connection with Place and just offered my information on a semi-monthly basis, if possible, to share what we've been doing, products, and market updates, excuse me, and just basically what we've been seeing lately and what's been useful. So I offered to come on here and just give a brief explanation of those items. And I'm not sure, Michael, did you want me to just
Yeah,
spend a few minutes doing that, or?
sure, go ahead. Were you going to do a market update or just talk about products?
Yeah, I'll just do a quick, I have about 5 slides here I can share if that helps. And
That's
then,
great. It's all yours.
okay. All right. So this is me and my QR code. If you want to get to my links, my socials, my apply link, I'll just leave that up there for a minute. And I'll get into some of the things for this week. But basically, if you are on my email list, and you can be if you just want to email me or shoot me a text message, every Monday a market spotlight comes out and gives you scripts for what's going on this week, gives you ideas on what you can say to buyers, to sellers, to investors, and just gives you updates on where mortgage rates are, what we expect in the coming week, and any sort of snippets that you can use in social media, right? Even scripts that you can turn into videos for your social media. So we just try to be helpful and give you some done for you marketing. So if you want any of that, just reach out, or any other questions, please feel free. One of the things that I like to go over on a weekly basis with agents are their market segments and just sort of statistics for their areas. So this is actually for San Joaquin Valley, San Joaquin County. I was going over with some agents on their market segments and days on the market, right? So depending on the price ranges on the left-hand side, the median prices, and then mostly speaking about the days on the market on the right-hand side, because we've been talking for several months and going over these numbers over last fall and this spring, and these numbers have come down, right? These numbers used to be up towards 60 in all the segments, and most recently the lower segments have dropped below 50. So we can see, as you probably know in your market, that some of the lower price range and better homes in those price ranges are selling faster than others. And what that means is strategically how you speak to clients, whether or not you're on the listing side or buying side. And what I'm using it for is to talk to agents and clients about potentially looking for credits or talking about buy down, right? And so if you and I are speaking, or we're speaking to clients mutually, we might tag team that conversation based off the information in your market. So I can get you access to information like this in your market. I can share it with you. You might have it already on your own, and that is fantastic. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew we could have these types of conversations either individually or as a group and track it over time. Inventory going up in San Joaquin, days on the market going down, right? And just an idea of how many price decreases are happening over 1/3 price decreases. So, if every third listing is having a price decrease and homes are sitting longer, so on and so forth, you change your strategy, you change your scripts. And so those are the conversations that we can have. This is just an example of what a script would have been this week. If you got this on Monday, you may have seen this, but hey, rates dropped again, now sitting around 6.7, the lowest in 2 months. That's a good conversation to have with somebody who might be on the fence, right? There's more homes on the market, 28% over the last year. More selection for you. Price reductions are still around 1 in 3. I mean, these can be great conversations to have with your clients. We're giving you this information weekly and happy to help you sort of repeat, right? Be the echo chamber for clients out there, because we all know that they need to hear it 6, 7, 25 times before they make a decision to get off. And that's what we're here to be a partner with you on that. As I mentioned, you get some social media slides and tiles to use. You can just literally copy these and paste them over to your social media, or use whatever information you like. But all of the mantra is the same. Hey, rates are lower than they have been. Inflation didn't change anything last Friday. Mortgage rates are lower. Jobs reports come out tomorrow, actually, and that could be a market mover. If you're in the market, it could be a good time to lock your interest rate right now. Give you a snapshot of where rates have been and where they are today. And we just talk about this on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. Give you a snapshot of all the different products on the trends of where rates are, and just have that as a part of the conversation, so that you have ideas out there when you're talking to clients and when you're talking to colleagues and just other people, that you make sure you have all the information you need, and a partner to be the echo chamber, as I mentioned. So hopefully that was helpful, and that's what I like to do.
So interest rates going down, have you seen an increase in refis?
Yes, the news this week is that refis were up like 34%. But however, that being said, interest rates are kind of back up as of yesterday, going back up. And I think in anticipation of the jobs reports tomorrow. So we'll see how the market reacts in total to that.
So if a real estate agent had a sphere of influence, they could call everybody that is in it, that owns a property, and say, have you heard that interest rates have gone down? Have you ever thought about refinancing? And they're going to say yes or no. And if they say no, really not, well, you're talking to them maybe and ask them when they plan on selling their home.
Absolutely. Yes. When we do sort of our call nights and cold calling through databases, we have those conversations, and we use scripts with our agents that are doing those things as well to say exactly that thing. Because in addition to that, there's other products that maybe over time we'll get into specific products, but that you could talk to, because a lot of clients we hear today, and I'm sure you hear this yourself, are that they can't move because they have a 2% rate and this and that, but they've outgrown the space. They wish they had one more bedroom, or wanted to do a kitchen or a backyard remodel. There's a lot of refinancing going on for renovations, and we have several renovation loan options, including a renovation second that uses the after repair value to give you that extra equity. So you're not just looking at appraised value. But also, what else can be done? Is it an ADU for a family member? There's lots of stuff going on with that, as well as debt consolidation loans, because again, as we know, credit card debt is at an all-time high.
Cool. And a question for the group: of the statistics that Matt shared, if you were going on a listing appointment, was there any one of those that jumped out at you as something that you'd want to probably call their attention to? One, if you could only mention one, what would that be? This is an audience participation opportunity, by the way, if you're wondering. Don't everyone blurt out something at once now, Wow. Remember his statistics? Right? No.
Sorry, I went very fast. Maybe it was just a blur.
Well, no, I don't know. I'm they're just in awe. So to me, the one that I would be talking about the most to sellers is how many price decreases do we have? And what percentage of the market? Because part of the discussion in a listing appointment is what is your pricing strategy? And sometimes people want to push the market. And if they push the market, then the issue is going to be it's not going to sell and they're going to have to do a price reduction. And then that's going to delay, it'll extend the days on market, which makes buyers think that there's something wrong with the property. If anyhow, that's my take. Anybody else got a thought about that? Well, all right. Well, thank you, Matt. I'm going to remove your spotlight. You're welcome to. Today, we're going to talk about the listing presentation, and I do have a document, which I may have clicked on so many things, it's not necessarily there, but I'm going to paste it in. Again, if there's someone that would, first of all, make sure that it opens, and then if you do that, make a copy of it. So when tardy people show up, we can, and they say, where's the copy? So this is a Google Doc. It's got a little outline on the side. Let me share it so you can see what I'm seeing. And you have to be flexible. It would be preferable that you would have a sufficient amount of time prior to your listing presentation to do all the necessary research. But you have to be flexible. Because if you're marketing or sometimes someone will say, I'm interested in selling my house. I'd like to know what it's worth. Can you come by now? Can you come by tonight in an hour? Now, you have a couple of choices. One is you could say, sure, I'll be right over. But that kind of assumes that you're already prepared. And if you are prepared and all you need to do is run a market analysis of the property, that only takes a couple of minutes. I got many videos, and I'm going to do a session on using RPR and MLS software to do a comparative market report. That's a whole nother discussion, but this assumes that you're ready. Now, what a lot of agents are going to say is, no, I really can't come by now, not tonight, I'm busy, my mother's sick and I'm going to take it, but the reality is they're not ready. We talk about fear of rejection. Some of you may have fear of acceptance, right? Whereas the scariest thing that could happen to you is somebody says, I'm interested in selling my house. Come over now and talk to me. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right, what are you going to do? So, but assuming that it isn't an immediate thing, and by the way, I can talk a little bit about how you can do it quickly. One of the things you're going to want, by the way, is a few apps on your phone. Now, this is going to be recorded and it's going to be on the YouTube channel. And if you've watched all my videos, you're crazy. But if you have, you'll notice I keep mentioning the same ones over and over again. One is RPR, the Realtor's Property Resource. It has a mobile app. I've done CMAs in houses on the app cold, right? I walk in, it's geo-based. It will find all the comps in the area. You can do it. Number two is what's called Palm Agent, which is a program that you get from the different title companies. Neither of these cost anything extra, and it allows you to do net sheets and things like that. And both of those I would download to my phone, and so that and have logged into them before I went on the appointment. Third is Zip Forms, which also is a mobile app. And what you would do is you would go into Zip Forms on the computer because it's easier, and you would get as much of the information about the listing into the computer so that when you go, you may not know the list price and you may not be sure about the commission and you may not have all of their information, but you want to fill it out as much as possible so that when you're there, you can finish it on your phone and send it to them for signatures. If it isn't clear, let me say it now. The goal of going on the listing appointment is to get them to sign a listing agreement. If you were wondering what's our goal, that's it. And you should be prepared to carry that piece out. You should know how to send a document from your phone, and you can take your laptop too, and you can have your phone as a hotspot. But I'm just saying you ought to be prepared to be able to do this from your phone and send it to somebody and get their signatures. It's not that hard, right? So we're assuming, and you practice. So would it be better if you practice all this stuff before somebody called and said, come on over right now, right? Because if you're a typical real estate agent, and I know you're not, right? None of you that are on the call today are typical real estate agents because obviously you're more sophisticated, more educated, more professional because you're on the call. Isn't that right? And so if you're not one of you, then you may be in this situation where you haven't learned to do anything. And the reason you didn't learn to do anything is because you don't have anybody that wants to sell their house. So you're thinking, well, why do I need to learn how to do a CMA? I don't have anyone to do a CMA on. Why would I need to learn zip forms? I don't have anybody that wants to sign a listing. But then it's too late. All right. So our system is that you're going to learn how to do those things and practice them. Because if you waver in your confidence, you're likely to push off when you're going to go on the appointment. Add a couple of days. Well, sometimes I was teaching a class like this. Somebody had called me that I've known for years and that I'd been following up with, and they said that they eventually texted me, we're ready to put our home on the market. When can you come over? The class lasted an hour. By the time I was done, they had listed with someone else. Right? Because I took too long, right? It was like 50 minutes. So don't stall, go on the appointment. What if you don't know anything about their property and you can't do a proper CMA? Again, we have questions you would ask to, tell me about your property. And again, if you have RPR on your phone, you can do it. All right. So what are we going to want to do? We're going to want to research it. We want to conduct a comparative market analysis. Easiest way to do that is RPR. Those of you that are on the PLACE team, we have a very sophisticated technology suite. Once all the MLSs are hooked up, it makes a very unique looking and high quality CMA, comparative market analysis. Why is that important? Well, every real estate agent has access to RPR, the Realtors Property Resource. They all do. So if you're attempting to communicate to the seller that you're different from, you're better than, you're not like all the others, and the material you give them is exactly the same as everyone else's. What's the same? I mean, it's obviously the same program, right? Obviously, same everything. So you don't really look like you're that different. This I know is a really old metaphor because, we don't do this anymore. But people used to have wallpaper, right? Not a thing as it used to be. And the wallpaper was a pattern, right? There might be little stars, there might be little, tartan kind of symbols. And if the metaphor is that if you're a real estate agent, you want to stand out from the wallpaper. Real estate agents tend to be like wallpaper. It's a pattern repeated over and over and over. They say the same things. They wear the same kind of clothes. They drive the same kind of cars, right? They have the same material. Everything, they talk and look the same. So by using the Brivity platform to do CMAs and that sort of, it's going to give you a unique look. But if you're not on the team, you should call me. And if you don't have access to that kind of software, then RPR, right? Or your multiple listing service. Notice if you really want to get this listing, you should go tour the competition. Chances are really good that they have. They've gone to open houses. They know what it looks like, what the other properties look like. If you can go look at the other properties that are competing geographically with your potential listing, go do it. You're going to want to do some research. Where would you get statistics on what's going on in the market? Well, you could contact Matt and he would have statistics. By the way, those renovation loans, the loans based upon as repaired value, one of the common things that you're going to get is the seller who says, well, I want to fix up the property, but I don't have any money. Right? I'll have a lot of money when I sell the property because I have a lot of equity, but I don't have the money to do the repairs. What should I do? What could I do? And there's generally two options. One is they could get a renovation loan, or number two, they can sometimes find contractors that will bill escrow. Some will, some won't. They charge more, by the way. And EXP has an arrangement with Curbio, but if you Googled searched, if you were curious enough and you looked hard, you would find that you could, find people locally that would do that. I talked about the pre-listing package last week. You would want to confirm, and this may sound really morbid. Before you go, check the MLS and see if it's active. Because sometimes agents show up for their listing appointment and there's a for sale sign in the front of the property. Somebody got there first. So the listing appointment, our goal is to build rapport, establish trust, set expectations. Introduction, it would be nice to be complimentary, casual conversation. All right. You drive up to the house. Do not park in their driveway. Do not park right in front of the house. Why not? Well, maybe they're not all home, and people tend to have a preferred parking space in their home, and it irritates them if they show up and the real estate agent is parked where they don't want to park the car. So I personally park down the street a little bit. Well, why don't you just park across the street? Well, first of all, I'm going to get there early, so they're not waiting on me. So the first impression I make isn't that I don't show up on time. I don't want to park across the street from them because they may be looking at the window and they say, hey, is that the real estate agent? What's he doing? He's just sitting in the car. Why doesn't he come on in? Right? Who needs that? So I park down the street just a little bit. And now it's getting tiny, it's close to the time. You get under your car. I would take with me stuff, right? I would take samples of marketing materials. I would take a marketing plan. I would take the presentation I'm going to show you what place has. And if you're on my team, by the way, we'll send you printed versions of it that you could take. They're high quality printing. I would have all that ready. And then you walk to the house. You go up, you knock on the door 3 times. If you knock once or twice, they may not hear you. If you knock 4 or 5 times, they may think you're, the cops again, that sort of thing. Then you step back so that you're not like right in the door when they open it up. They open the door, you step back and you say, hi, it's Mike Devlin with EXP Realty. We had an appointment for 6 o'clock at 6 o'clock, and here I am to see your house. Or, excuse me, here I am to talk to you about listing your house. And you're going to learn in our dialogues that you put emphasis on certain words, neuro-linguistic programming. So you would say something like, I'm here to talk to you about listing your house. And they say, oh, come on in. What do you want to do first? What you want to do is you want to go to the kitchen table, if that's possible, and you want to maybe chat a little bit, or you put down your stuff. I'm more, let's get it done kind. So you'd put down your stuff and you would say to them something like, this is what I actually say. I say, so why don't you give me a quick tour of your property? Pretend you're a real estate agent and you're showing me your property and you want to sell the property. Go, I mean, give it a shot. And they oftentimes laugh and they go around and they talk and you go. And now while you're doing that, you want to build rapport. There are 4 steps in any consultation, presentation, or sale. First step is building rapport. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That you can do by talking about their motives and things like that. But right now, if they give you a tour and you've told them, tell me everything you've done, everything you like, give me the whole, and you can ask questions as you're going along and chat with them and that sort of thing. Step 1 is build rapport. Now, step 2 is to qualify. And qualify, we're going to get to next, which is where we ask them questions. Step 3 is to show them how we can help them with their problems. The questions are designed to find out what their pain points are. And then we have to show them how we can help them. And number 4 is to close, which means to get a decision. All right. Closing. Do you want to know what my best closing line is?
Yes, please.
Sure. Closing question, right? This is the closing question I would always ask, right? So once we've talked and everything, and I would recap and I'd say, well, this is what you're looking to do, and this is what we're going to do to get that. And here it comes. Here comes the closing question. Any questions? And if they say no, I'd say, great, then let's do the right thing. Let's get going. We can start right now. And I would, if they have questions, then I'd answer their questions. And then I'd say, any questions? And when they said no, then I would say, great, let's get started. We're going to go through some more of those, but that's the springboard to get to where they're going to sign the agreement. Understand their seller needs and goals. Now we have a seller need sheet, but you want to find out why they are why are you thinking of selling your home at this time? Right? Why? And then they're going to say what they're going to say. If they say, well, we think it's worth a lot and we have a bunch of equity and we might want to move sometime someplace else. So we're kind of thinking, let's see what we can do. And then, maybe we'll sell. That's one thing. Let me see, are there any, Angela, let me know if there's a question in the chat that you really think I ought to.
I'll do.
But what if they say, well, our daughter is having our first grandchild and she's in Tucson, Arizona, and so we want to move there and be there before the baby is born so that we can, be there and be grandparents and, help with all that. Now, that's a very different answer because there's time frames involved in that. Plus, it's probably something they're very motivated to do. Whereas the first one, not so much. I mean, if it looks good, they'll do it. So it's all comes down to motivation. And one of the questions that we ask is, what time frame are you looking to sell your home? Well, we want to do it in the next 3 months. If you don't sell it in the next 3 months, what's plan B? What's the next plan? And then if they say, well, see, now we're finding out how much motivation there is. Because what we really want to do is connect with emotional issues. Emotion creates motion. And what we want them to do is to move forward. All right. Presenting your value, unique value proposition. And I'm going to go through what the place one looks like as an example a lot that's in it is kind of a place thing, but your listing presentation, even if you're not part of our team, would follow a similar format. And the format is either we call them a value proposition, your unique value proposition. There's another one that doesn't come to my mind, but you're going to want to showcase your marketing plan. Now, this is not universally accepted by real estate trainers, what I'm about to say. In fact, if you go to YouTube and you watch videos on listing presentations, or you go to your broker's training about listing presentations, you're going to find that a significant number of those presentations will disagree with what I do when I go on a listing presentation. And what I do is I showed up at the property. I put my stuff why kitchen table? Right? Why that? And the answer about the kitchen table is it's where they probably are more comfortable making decisions. The dining room, the living room is where guests go. The kitchen is where family and friends come. And so when we're sitting down, I actually turn my chair sideways while I'm talking to them and I'm asking them questions that are about motivation and rapport building and that sort of thing. And then when it gets to the point where, enough sweet talk, I will turn my chair and move it in, which gives sort of a physiological, is that the right word? Anyhow, clue that we're now talking business. And I always begin with this. I say, what are your goals for this meeting? What specifically do you want to know? Do you want to find out? Tell me what would make this a win for you. And then they're going to say. Now, what's different about my approach to what many people would tell you is that my approach is whatever they say is their primary concern or questions. I talk about that first, not last. And if you watch all the YouTube videos on listing appointments, you'll hear people say, no, you have to have control. Don't talk about price until the end. Don't talk about commission to the end. Don't do it, right? Make them sit through the whole thing, right, before you talk about that. I think that's a mistake. First of all, I think it irritates them if they say, well, the most important thing we want to hear from you is what the property is worth. And you say, hey, sit back. That's about another 45 minutes from that, right? And then while you're talking about that you have, an Instagram, post that you're going to make for them, and they're wondering, what is my house worth? We want to know what the house is worth. So it works a lot better to do that first. Now, the commission you could kind of put off a little bit. And by the way, if somebody asks me on the phone, how much commission do you charge before I go to the listing appointment? My answer is, we'll discuss that at the appointment, but I'll tell you this, the amount of the commission is not what's going to keep us from working together. All right. So anyhow, I'm there, we do the tour, right, where they're showing me the property, talking about things. You might want to take with you what's called a MLS data input form. And if you're wondering what that is, log into your MLS and go to forms, and you're going to see there's a listing data input form. Now, what is this? It's a list of all the questions the multiple listing service is going to ask you when you put the listing into the multiple listing service. And if you haven't really looked at that form or brought it with you, you might not have answers to some. Well, for example, is the foundation a pillar and post or concrete perimeter? Huh? Do you know? Well, you didn't even see it. Could it be a slab? What do you know? Right? You didn't look at it. You didn't see it. You didn't try to crawl under the house. You never asked them because that's a weird why, right? But it's on the data listing input form, and you're not going to be able to put that property into the MLS unless you know the answer to that question. And it doesn't look professional if after they say, yes, put the property on the MLS, you have to call them back and say, oh, there was some things I didn't find out when I was there. My bad. So let me ask you, I got some, take it with you. And while you're walking around, most of them are things to check, you check off things. So we put our stuff at the table, we went for a walk, and I do this. Sometimes I say to them, that was really good because they were, pretending to be a real estate agent. You did a great job. Have you ever thought about getting into real estate? You seem like you're a natural at this. Right. And I've actually had people say yes and enroll in my real estate school. So anyhow, now we're back at the table. We're sitting down. There's a little small talk. We ask them what's important to them, and we're going to talk about that. What that usually means is the market analysis. What is the value of our property? There are certain numbers you're going to have to know when you go on that listing appointment, because they're going to ask you. One, what do you plan on listing the property for? What would you suggest we list it for? Two, how much commission are you going to charge? Three, how long is the listing going to be for? Now, sometimes those are questions that real estate agents makes them queasy. It makes them a little queasy. But you're going to have to commit to those three things. Price, something, we'll talk about that. Commission, and how long is your listing going to be for? So we do the walk around pricing strategy. We use a 5x5 pricing strategy. I'm going to just go quickly through the presentation. Let me also say this. We call it a listing presentation. It's not, usually. It's a listing conversation. If you were to ask me, give me a metric that would determine how great my listing presentation was, the answer is you listen or ask questions 90% of the time, and you talk 10% of the time. When I was doing this a lot more regularly, when I didn't have as many people on the team and I was going on appointments a lot more, I would have agents say, hey, I want to go with you on the listing appointment. I want to see your listing presentation. That's what I want to see. I'd say, sure, whatever, and we would park around the thing and, this other stuff. And they were almost always disappointed in me. It wasn't that I didn't get the listing, is that they never saw a presentation. And they would say, well, you didn't even do a presentation. All you did is ask questions for the whole time. I mean, that's all you did. Right. And I said, yeah. And I listed the house. So occasionally I've had sellers say, I'm interviewing you and 5 other brokers, 5 other agents. And when we showed up, the seller said, okay. He said, how about there? All right. Give me your listing presentation. Show me. All right. Now, that's one out of, I don't know, a large number of times. But you need to be prepared for that too. You need to be prepared if somebody says, give me your listing presentation, that you can actually go through the thing and explain every page. Having said that, that doesn't mean what you're going to do on every listing is go through every page and talk about them. Because I had learned a really long time ago that on a listing appointment, you should talk about what the seller wants to talk about and nothing else. Don't talk about other things that the seller doesn't want to talk about. Number 2, you should, if you're serious about this, make a list of all the questions you think a seller might ask you. All the ones that scare you. How long have you been in the business? How many homes have you sold? Right, make a list of all of the questions that a seller might ask you. Make a list of all the objections that a seller might give you. Well, we're going to be interviewing some other agents. So-and-so says they can do it for, a flat fee. We're going to think it over. You need to, it would be better to plan what you're going to say before you go on the appointment. All right. Talk about what's important to them. So I had a Padawan that was going on a first listing appointment in the city of Cupertino. I went with her and I told her she wanted to do role playing. So she started off by saying, here's our agenda. And I say, don't tell them what the agenda is. Ask them what they want the agenda to be. And whatever questions they ask, answer them. So we go on this appointment and the husband and wife are sitting there and she says, the agent, what's important to you? What would you like to learn? And they said, well, we have, some questions. Can we ask you some questions? And she said, yes, because I told her whatever they want to do it. And so they started going through and asking question after question after question, which the agent answered, and everything was cool. And you could see the relief on their face when they were done and they closed the book. And they said, tell us, what else should we know? At which point we would do a presentation based upon what their goals and concerns were. We get the listing. Now, later, I was talking to those clients and I asked them, because why not? I said, were we the only agents that you were talking to, or did you interview other agents? They said, well, we interviewed other agents. And I said, really, who? Anyone I know? One of them was an agent named Mary Tan, Coldwell Banker, the number one listing, at least at that time, the number one listing agent in the city of Cupertino, the number one agent. And I said, ooh, she sells a lot of houses. Why didn't you go with her? And they said, well, all she did was talk about herself, and we never got to ask our questions. And that really frustrated us. And I said, oh, yeah, good to hear. So do you understand? They don't want necessarily you to make a big speech about yourself. And depending on the personality style, they want to know more or less. Like I give the example, I was on a listing appointment and I was doing the presentation, right? Because that's what I was taught to do. And the guy got up from the table, the kitchen table, and he goes into the kitchen and he's washing things. He said, no, keep going, keep going. And then when I paused, he said to me, are you going to need a key tonight? And I go, oh, this guy's a high D personality style. So you might ask before you go on the appointment, do you plan on listing your home with me that night? I called to confirm just to see where you are in the process. When I come by Thursday night, are you planning to list the home Thursday night with me? Do you want me to take the listing then? And I've had people say, well, yeah. I mean, that's why we called you. That's why we want you to come. Well, yeah, of course. See, now that's different, isn't it? Because you're not going there, you're going there to do the nitty-gritty of getting the listing. All right. The comparative market analysis. Yeah, you need one. It's not necessarily that important. So I've done this script before. My, software is recording it again. But this is what I always say to sellers when we get to pricing. First of all, on the CMA, you want them to say what they think the price should be first. So on the call before I go on the listing appointment, I ask them, I say, so have you been paying attention to what's going on in your neighborhood in terms of home prices and things like that? And yeah, we've been, yeah. Great. You have an idea of what your home is likely to sell for. I've had people just blurt out a number, Tell me, yes, 1.2 million. Oh, cool. See, now I have something to start with when I'm doing the CMA. Sometimes they'll say, oh, no, we're not going to tell you. You have to tell us. That's the deal. Yeah, all right, great, that's fine. By the way, do you have a loan on your property? Huh? Really? How much? Cool. Do you know what the interest rate is? Just off the top of your head, roughly, it's useful in determining closing costs. Uh-huh. By the way, what are you planning to do when you sell your home? Oh, you're going to buy a new home subdivision. That sounds like fun. Those are nice. Is there a certain amount of cash you need to walk away with when you sell this home in order to buy the new home subdivision? Now, I've had people that wouldn't tell me what they think the house ought to sell for, but would tell me how much their loan was and how much cash they needed from the sale in order to move on. I could do the math, right? And I know what they need. And yeah, anyhow, so so what I would explain to them. So we want them to say a number. Well, let's say they won't say the number. When I get there to the appointment and I get to the market value, I will ask them again, do you have an idea what your property is likely to sell for? And they say, no, we're not going to tell you. You're not going to get a, all right, great. So then I sort of go over the CMA, but what I'm looking in the CMA is to find at least 3 properties, 5 aren't bad, that are in different price range, roughly similar to theirs. And then I'll push out those, like I'll just get a sheet either from RPR or the MLS on those few properties, and I'll talk to them about each one. This one's a 4-bedroom, just like yours, built a little bit earlier. This one's a little bit later. And then after that, I'd say, of these, which do you think is the closest comparable to yours? Always, they pointed at one. Always. Now I know what price range they're really thinking about. I know. Because the CMA, it may not give you like a precise number. And then when it comes time, I'll say, look, there are 3 strategies that you can have in pricing your home. Strategy number 1 is called the we're having a sales strategy. And in this strategy, we deliberately list your home for below what we think it's going to sell for. So it creates a frenzy of activity. The open houses are like ant hills. We'll more likely get multiple offers with fewer contingencies. The more people like it, the more people like it. That's strategy number 1, likely to net you the most money. Strategy number 2 is called Price is Right. That's where we go through all the comparables and we think about it and we calculate and you make a spreadsheet and you come up with the price you think your house is worth. We list it for that and we don't budge. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. We'll get 0 to maybe an offer. Strategy number 3 is called the needle in the haystack strategy, and that's where we list the property way above what we think it ought to sell for, just in case some crazy person shows up and decides to buy it. By the way, in the business, we call those listings expireds at a certain point. And again, even if we can convince someone to offer that price, the problem you want to praise, and we'll be renegotiating the price. So of those 3 strategies, which one do you think would work best in the sale of your property? They almost always say number 2, right? They almost always say number 2. And then I say, okay, maybe I didn't explain this very well. Strategy number 1, I repeat word for word what I said the first time. They usually stop me and they say, okay, I get it. Now, one of the things that I would take with me is a spreadsheet, which I get from the MLS, that shows properties in the neighborhood or zip code that have closed in the last 30, 60 days, enough so I get 20 of them or so. And what I want to do is to look at the list price and the sales price, and I use the spreadsheet to calculate the amount different and the percentage difference so I can, and by the way, if you're on my team, make an appointment with me. This takes me only a couple of minutes to do. I have videos on me doing this, showing me doing this. But what it does, you see, let's say the list to sales price ratio, which is one of the statistics, is 100%. So what that means is that properties listed for 800,000 sell for 800,000 on average. But when you look at the spreadsheet, no one got 100%. Some people got 105, 110, 115. Some people got 85, 90. You understand the average might have been 100, but there are some people that got more and some people that got less. And if you look at the people that got the most over list price, they also sold in the shortest amount of time. So what we would point out to them is that the way the game is being played is that we list it low, buyers expect that, so that they have room to bid up. One of the listings I had in Sunnyvale, we tried to get the seller to accept this. The seller wanted 1.6, insisted we list it for 1.6. Sunnyvale, by the way, is a strong seller's market, and it didn't sell. And then we convinced them to lower. I tell the story on you, and you're welcome to as well. We lowered the price $150,000, and it immediately sold for 1.6 plus. And they were like, why? I said, well, because the way the market is, buyers are thinking they're crazy. What do they really want? They don't think the list price is what you want. They think you want more. And if you start too high, then you're not playing the game. So pricing, I always refer to pricing as a strategy. Pricing strategy, right? You should practice this. I want to list at a higher price. The phrase I use, again, depending on the market, outside of Silicon Valley and some other parts of the Bay Area, the vast majority of all sales have appraisal, loan, or investigation contingencies. The vast majority do. If you're in Silicon Valley and you've got a hot listing, chances are people are going to be making offers without those contingencies. But if somebody says, well, why don't we just list it high anyhow? It has to appraise, and the phrase I use is facts of record. The appraiser is going to be looking at the same facts of record that I've showed you. Transition into signing, what to do after that. All right. So it looks like I've done this twice. Is that true? Did I really put in the same thing twice? Should I charge you double? All right, I don't know. I don't know. Let me just one like steps 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, I look anyhow. So what do we do in place is we have, and by the way, if you go into place, which is our place, it's a happy place, and you were interested in perfecting your listing presentation and you just searched our place, you're going to find there's a script, there's role play videos. We have a certification program where we take you step by step. And by the way, on the team, what we're going to be practicing relatively soon is the presentation. So even if you're not going to go from start to finish, although sometimes you do, you need to be able to take any page out of the listing presentation to be able to explain it. What does that look like? I don't know. Dismiss. I don't know. How about this? All right, that's not it. All right, let me and so this is what our presentation looks like. It follows a pattern that we use for the buyer consultation and even that for the career consultation. This is all about you, and we have a script. We're going to practice it. We have videos of role playing. There's a letter from the founders. This is a traditional thing, and you know it's a nice letter. It's got contents. See what that little box is, powered by Place. Guess what you could put over that box? Anybody want to just see if anybody's still awake? What does that look like?
Sure.
What does it look like?
Cards.
Oh,
Ooh,
cool.
It looks like a business card would fit there. So you get that little, they're like this little gummy stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
Where do you get those? Hardware store?
You can get them at a bunch of different places. They look like boogers, but
Yep,
you can
I know exactly.
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
And most of the Walmart would sell them or just glue. I don't know, right? You know, you could either do the booger or put a little glue on it and stick your business card on it. Right?
Huh, okay.
What sets our company apart? We work as a team, track record, transparency, marketing. Sometimes people care about this. There was an agent on my team, went on a listing appointment. He thought he did really well and that they liked him, but they listed with somebody else. And so he called them and said, "Hey, I'm just curious. Why not me?" And they said, "Well, we liked you and all that sort of thing, but you look like you're a lone wolf. And the other guy, part of a big team." And he was kicking himself, my agent, because my team is bigger than the team that they listed with. But he never told them that he was even on a team. See, sellers, because when they list their home with you, is getting an intangible, your promise to provide a service in the future. And the fact that you're part of a big organization, that looks pretty good. And Place is the largest team organization in the United States by a lot, more than the number 2, 3, 4, and 5 teams put together. So it doesn't hurt to talk about this. Again, we're going to role play. Everybody that's on the team will be able to do this. But one of the other things you want to point out, it's not just you. There's a director of operations, there's a director of marketing, there's a transaction coordinator, right? There's all these roles of people that are behind you. And if you're thinking, well, in my broker, I don't have anybody like that, talk to me, right? Talk to me. Our track record last year, Place sold 13,500 homes for $12 million spent on advertising, marketing, and servicing. Our average rating is 4.9 of 5%. Then it goes through transparency. They get a portal. It tells them everything that's going on. Our marketing, online, traditional, international. We go through the different types of buyers, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and our marketing materials that we produce attracts all of them for each of the different categories. My explanation as to why marketing is valuable is if you were to go to a store to buy, a coat, and because you had something big coming up and you tried on the different coats and one of them looked just great, it fit perfectly, it was the right color, the right style, and right fit, but it cost more than the other coats. Would you buy it anyhow? Most people would say, well, yeah, if I could afford it, sure, I'd buy because we would pay more, wouldn't we, for something that fits better, wouldn't we? So our role as your agent is to find the buyer for whom your home fits the best. That buyer will pay more. And the way we do that is exposing your property to the greatest number of qualified buyers. Here's how. We go through what makes the property sell. We go through our pricing strategy. And at this point, I usually am flipping back and forth if I'm actually at these different parts where I would show them the CMA. The Brivity technology platform will make one. We have examples of what we're going to do to sell it, that we're going to sell it faster and for more money. We market it to the top agents. We do. So the way you explain this is there's two kinds of marketing that we do. One is we market your property to the general public, but then we also market your property, this is it, to real estate agents. Why do we do that? 29% of the time when they ask buyers, how did you find the home you buy? 29% of the time they said, my agent found it for me. Now, a little more than half of them say that I saw it online. And some of them say, I saw it in a more open house signs. I went, I drove by, saw the for sale sign. So if we're not marketing the property to other real estate agents, we're going to lose 30% of the buyers. By the way, this also gets into the conversation, are you going to give a concession to help pay the buyer's agent's compensation? And the phrase I use, I have a video on this, is the cooperating agent's compensation. And you would think of that as a marketing expense as a seller, because if we don't compensate cooperating agents, they may not be that cooperative. Right? They're not going to cooperate. And we want them, so I'm going to go to the board meeting, I'm going to put on the board tour, we're going to email every agent, we're going to look for agents that are selling this kind of property, we're going to reach out to them, we're going to do everything. We're going to do everything. Right? Everything. And this is the outreach we would do to other agents. There's something called reverse prospecting. If you're on my team, it's something you can do in your MLS. I'll show you how, where you can identify all the agents in the MLS that have buyers that could be interested in the property. Internet marketing. Bro, I've had people say, I really like the Compass website. I really do. I like their website, right? Sellers. And I'm like, great, your listing will be on their site too. Your listing, by the way, is going to be on Keller Williams' site. You like the Remax site? It'll be on Remax. Sotheby's and Coldwell Banker, yeah, it'll be there too. Century 21, Berkshire Hathaway, EXP, all of them. What do I mean by all? I mean 300 of them. Like all of them. And how is that possible? Well, there's something called the Internet Data Exchange. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that when I put it in the MLS, that it gets syndicated to all the major real estate company sites. Right? So if somebody goes to Compass and they're looking around, they're going to see the listing. Doesn't that sound great? Huh? Doesn't it? Search engines, optimization, classified services in Brivity, which is our tech platform. Once we input a listing, we can automatically send it out. I was searching for the word, to a variety of different classified services. This is all done at no expense to the agents on the team through software that's already there. Because the more people that see it, the more likely we are to find a buyer for whom it fits best and will pay more. Social media marketing, yard signs, open houses, showing, networking, print advertising. Where do the buyers come from? We have international marketing, and a certain percentage of the people. Did you know that people in California sometimes are coming from outside of California when they buy property? We're global communication, market updates. So my goal wasn't to go through all of this right now, but on the team, you're going to need something like this. And you're going to need to be prepared to explain any page. This is a page about Envoy Mortgage. Again, if they need renovation loans or they need something like that, we've got products for them. This explains the process for negotiations. You get the idea. Now, those of you that are on the team have already received a copy of this. I know you have. If you look at the emails we send you every week, and some of you don't look, but if you look at them, you're going to see we have it. It's also available on our place. If you're on the team, what you're going to want to do is go through the listing presentation certification program, which is something that Place has, where they're going to give you a script and practice every single page of that presentation. And then we're going to practice it and role play it so that it becomes comfortable. It becomes comfortable. And again, if you're on my team and you are going on an appointment, I've had several occasions where I've done a Zoom call with the sellers to answer questions. Let me know if you need any help like that. Questions? Anybody? This is your... All right. I know you're here. I can hear you breathing. Not really. Okay.
Michael, I do have a question. Have you ever walked away from a listing because they just were unrealistic?
Yeah, a few times, but I'm a typical chicken agent, it depends. I had a listing that I knew was significantly overpriced, also in Sunnyvale, and it took almost 9 months for it to sell. I told them that I was going to leave it in my will, the commission, for future generations to live off of. Every agent new agent in the company got to do open houses every weekend. And what happened is the market rose, prices rose, and eventually caught up, and it sold, and I got $9,000, which I don't think I would have gotten had I told them no. And so that's the part of getting a listing. So, I mean, there's a part where you go too far. But if you get a listing, it's easier to get another listing, and it's easier to find buyers. Because you're doing your own open houses, you can do just listed, you can do it just sold, you get to brag about it. And so sometimes the listing is designed to create more business rather than sell that listing. However, it doesn't look good if you have listings that don't sell, right? That just sit there, and then other neighbors might think you're crazy because you listed it for that price and there's no way. So this usually is determined by how busy the real estate agent is. If you don't have any other listing appointments, you don't have any sellers, you don't have any prospects for a seller, and somebody says, I'm willing to sign a listing with you, but I want this price, it's easy to say, oh, okay. Because they might lower the price. Somebody might pay more than you thought. And sometimes we really don't know what it's worth. I learned a long time ago. I went on a listing appointment. This is an old store. I don't want to give the exact prices, but I will. And this was a particular model, and they had done some additions and things like that. And the comp said they were not going to get more. It was like 380,000. And I asked them, what do you think the property's worth? And they said, 420. Now, I had made a mistake in that when they asked me, I told them 380 before I got them to tell me 420. So once I said 380, and then I said, is that the price range you're looking in? And they said, no, we were thinking 420. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said it. Because you understand, once I've said it, they don't believe me anymore. Because if I said, look, there are two decisions you have to make. Number one is, who do you want to represent you when you sell your house? You should base that on the marketing plan the real estate agent has. And number two, you make the decision what price. And I'll go to the moon with you. I remember that's what I said. You can pick any price you want, and I'm on your side. But I've already told them I don't think it's worth 420. And there's no way I can get that back. It sold for 435. I was wrong. And it sold anyhow, somebody else. And that's when I learned, don't tell them what I think it's worth until they tell me what they think it's worth. And then see, is there any way possible we could, get that?
Michael,
Yeah.
this is Pua. In the presentation, when they push to see your, like you said, give me your presentation, would it be prudent at that time to kind of pivot to where you're wanting them to tell you what they want?
The presentation doesn't have the price built into it. But I asked them, like I always ask them, what is your agenda? What would you like to talk about? And that guy said, well, we're talking to, 6 agents and you're one of them. Give me your presentation. That's what I want. I want to see, they were doing listing presentations. I want to see yours. Do it. That's what they want. So I did it, right? Because I could explain every page. Again, that's not the most common result, but you need to be prepared for that. That somebody says, I want to hear the whole thing. What I avoid doing, because you sort of have to gauge, are they on your side and going your way? What I avoid doing, if they say we're ready, and I can sense they're ready to move forward, I don't want to say to them, well, not so fast. I'm not done. I would just say, great, let's sending you the listing or agreement right now. The other thing, which who's left? Most of you. One of the things that I would make sure you have with you, and this is better if you do it on you could do it on the phone, you could do them in advance, and you could do different prices, but this is what Palm Agent, which is Chicago Title has a free app. Almost every title company has this. This is
Net
what a
sheets.
net sheet looks like. Let me just a second. This is what the net sheet looks like. I know. This is what the net sheet looks like on Palm Agent. And there's a bunch of different templates. And I even can do different scenarios. This price, that price, this price. So because I've practiced this, I have it on my phone. And if I go there and 860 isn't the right price, we're doing 900,000 and they tell me their loan balance is only 250, I can change it right then and there and it'll calculate a new net and it breaks it down. It knows the difference between what are the closing costs in Santa Clara County versus Orange County versus San Diego County versus Sacramento. Because some cities have have city transfer taxes and some don't. Some areas is a buyer pay, some areas is a seller pay, some areas is a split. The software knows all that. So before you go on the appointment, you do this, you can do it online, it synchronizes with your phone. You put in the contact information that you put in all of it. And if you're nervous, you could print out 4 or 5 of these at different prices, guessing what the loan balance is. How would we know the loan balance in advance? Well, you can look on RPR or Realist and find out that 10 years ago, they borrowed $250,000, let's say, and you can ask the internet what were interest rates back then, and it'll tell you. And even AI programs or amortization schedules, if you told Chat GPT or Gemini, if somebody took out a loan 10 years ago for 250,000 and their interest rate was this, how much on a 30-year fixed rate loan would they owe today? And since it knows amortization, it would calculate what the balance is. It would be better if they gave us the accurate number, but we can have something. But what I have done is on the phone, we make the modifications. I've showed it to people. I say, see, this is what it looks like, right? See that big thing on the right? And if you want, I'll send you a copy of this with the breakdown. You ready? Okay, great. And because I've already put in their name and their email address and I've saved it, it right then gets transferred to them. You need to practice doing these things. All right. I see that there are chats. Let's see. What about rate buy downs? Is that an app I can use? I would like to use that, Mr. Miranda says. Do you know a friendly title rep, James? Do you know a friendly? Yes, ask them. This is provided at no charge by virtually every title company has this. If your title rep doesn't have this, get a new title company. Because every major title company does. Does EXP have a listing presentation? The answer is yes. Do I use it, Sherry? No. Why not? To me, it looks like it was written by somebody who's never been on a listing appointment, but is in marketing. This, by the way, is true for Keller Williams and Coldwell Banker and Citrus 21. I don't know. But the answer is yes. EXP has a listing presentation, but it's in Canva. I don't know. I like this one better. Why don't you, Sherry, talk to me about place? How about that? Any other questions? No? All right. That seems good then. Are we good? Are we done? Are you happy?
Thank you so much.
Okay. Next week we're going to talk about now what? You've got the listing. What do? You know, drink heavily. No. You start to do the work to get it sold. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.